I will get started.
Okay.
Welcome, theater addicts. My name is Danielle Benson, and I am here with Devin Moore of Devin Moore Music, who has Flute Loops in the Vancouver Fringe this year at the Culture Historic. So welcome, Devin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me from a distance. I'm still in Edmonton at the moment, but I am really looking forward to getting back home for the last stop on the tour, and it's my home festival. So.
And Vancouver is your home. That's awesome.
Yes.
I didn't know that, so that's great.
Yes.
And thank you for taking the time. I know that. Tell us a little bit about why you're still in Edmonton.
I'm still in Edmonton. I can't leave. The Fringe closed on Sunday, and it was a really amazing festival. This is the big one, right? There's over 220 shows. There's a huge outdoor street performance component to it too. It's insane. And then at the end of it, they pick a few shows to hold over, and Flute Loops was among the 4 shows selected as for the holdover series this week. So I am here stretching out an extra 2 performances in Edmonton, and yeah, just really looking forward to that too. What a nice way to cap off the road season and head back home to East Van to do it there.
Well, what a fantastic excuse to not be able to do an interview live. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so popular that.
Yay.
Well, and I'm not surprised because I did see Berlin Waltz, which was, I believe, the last show you did at the Fringe.
Yeah.
Years ago now, though.
Yeah, it was not last year, so it would have been 2016.
We'll look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it wasn't there last year.
I saw Berlin Waltz, and I just absolutely loved it. So I'm not surprised that people are loving Flute Loops, and I am very excited to see it myself. Can't wait. So you're at the Edmonton Fringe. Yes. You're held over there. You're coming to Vancouver Fringe. How many Fringes have you done?
In Vancouver will be the 7th this summer. It's been a big summer.
The 7th this summer, not like until.
Yeah, I started in London, Ontario, and then Montreal, and then Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver.
So you are a real hardcore Fringe artist.
This summer has been a slightly bigger undertaking in a lot of ways than my usual summer schedule. But knowing that I had entry into all these festivals is kind of what motivated me to try and push a little bit creatively and to take some risks and to, give myself something to really dig my teeth into over the course of this summer and see, where this work would evolve to over the course of 50 performances or so. And it's been a really positive experience overall, but the Fringe is of course full of peaks and valleys. So there's been some of the highest highs and some of the moments where you're like, what was I thinking? Trying to sell people a rock opera about quantum physics. Like, that sounds so interesting to me, but maybe it's not for everyone. I try to open when I'm pitching my show in the flyers now to say, pitching the show in the lineups to say it's not for everyone. You have to like live music. You have to like strong female characters, and you have to have a sense of humor. Otherwise, don't come. It's not the show for you. Specifically, it was crafted for intelligent people with a sense of humor. And maybe a small degree of curiosity about the universe would be a useful prerequisite as well.
That's a really great way of pitching it, because I don't think there are a lot of people who would be like, oh, that's not me.
Some people
I'm not intelligent.
No, like, I want to stop right there because there's something else for you at this festival, but it is not my show.
So did you create Flute Loops for this summer?
I did. I had the opportunity to spend a month at a really fantastic arts center called the Lookout Arts Quarry in Washington State earlier this spring, and just dive in and build the show. And the show is set at the concert for this really cool hipster rock band that has just gone viral. And I play the quantum physics PhD student who is filling in at the merch table for the evening. And my character is a fish out of water in this really cool indie rock scene. She's more of a classical music fan and a bit of a super nerd. And so one of the things I wanted to do was poke a bit of fun at this sort of idea of going viral, or what it is that might break a musical act through, whether it be a gimmick of their instrumentation. For example, in the Flute Loops, Thomas, the lead flautist, can play any face-melting guitar solo from classic rock on the flute. Maybe it's a gimmick, but hey, you never know. It's going to push through. But I also wanted to poke a little bit of fun at the way that pop music seems to sample from itself pretty obsessively or incestuously, you might say. And so what I did in the score is I sampled the most famous riffs and licks from the classical genre. Took what I thought were sort of the signature lines from a bunch of different composers and paired them up and embedded them inside these indie rock songs that explore the nature of space-time. So it was a really fantastic opportunity to have that month to just sort of work through the logistics and the transposing and the instrumentation, what that might look like for the soundtrack. And that was in the spring. And then, yeah, shortly after getting it up on its feet there, and sort of pulled my socks up and took it on the road.
Wow. That's awesome. So has it changed much, or has it just solidified?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it has changed quite a bit. If you were to look at it from the very first show, I previewed it actually in Kamloops at a small festival called the Hydra Festival in the spring. So it had its first 3 performances there. And I think if you were to look at that version of the show and watch it at the Holdover series here in Edmonton, it probably has changed quite a bit. But I don't notice really, right? Because it's been small little evolutions or little kind of character choices that have now kind of just caused everything to coalesce a bit better. The music has not changed really much. The score, though, I mean, the way that I perform it is using a variety of instruments and a loop station, so it's live scored before your eyes from on stage. So it's a little bit different every night, but the bones, the musical structure of it has been the same. It's just sort of some of the lyrics have evolved a little bit to clarify. I've come up with a few more sensical ways of describing some of the quantum mechanics that I'm trying to talk about in the show in my lyrics. And the character has changed too. And that's in response to the audience a lot, because the audience is part of Flute Loops. It's set at the rock show. They are the audience at the rock show, right? And so this live format really needed to be explored with an audience before it could take flight. And that's what I really love about being on the Fringe, is you have this opportunity to work with an audience, and the audience is very much a component of they shape the production in many ways, but very directly in my show, because they are, I won't ask you to get up on stage and do anything embarrassing or like play an instrument, but the audience is very much an integral part of the show and the energy of the show, and they do contribute in ways that you'll see when you come see it.
That must be such a gift, I think, for a performer and a creator, to have a huge span of time, because you've had the whole summer, like since spring, and all these different audiences in different cities as well, to really to hone the show and to get feedback and to test things out, and just to get really, we're lucky in Vancouver, we're getting the end of this long experiment.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to play with the audience and the character. I always think I think it's very fortunate that my home turf is the last stop, though, so I can work out the kinks. Especially, I mean, this show was so new at the start of the year, and I mean, I'm pushing myself both in terms of the music that I'm trying to execute on stage, and also just the scope of the content that I'm trying to communicate in the show, and some of the character choices. I feel like I was pushing a lot to, see what I could do. And it's nice to be able to work out some of the kinks far from home, and then come back to Vancouver and say, it's polished, here it is, and I hope you like it.
A safe space elsewhere. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, where did you come up with this idea of like the rock concert quantum physics? Do you have a background in science, or? and interest, or
Well,
where did this come from?
you know, a lot of people after seeing the show assume that I am either in the midst of my PhD in quantum physics or theoretical physics, or that I dropped out to pursue music. And I'm very hesitant to dispel that myth. I like to be honest as an artist, but I kind of like that. Just go ahead and spread that rumor. I don't have specifically a physics background. I am a huge nerd. I love to research. And it's sort of the concept for the show started at the intersection of music and math, because I knew I wanted to work with the multi-instrumentation and the looper, and I wanted somehow the content of the show to be relevant to the way that the music was being made, rather than having it just be a device. I wanted it to be unfolding sort of in real time. So having it take place at a concert certainly takes care of a lot of that, but also then playing with the idea of abstract math and this sort of quantum theory and patterns, and that to me seemed like a logical content area to look at, because there is a lot of crossover between music and mathematics, and the looping and the patterns and the predictability, or the sort of unpredictability sometimes of doing things live. There's a lot of, I think, philosophical jumping off points within this quantum universe that were fun to play with from a writer's perspective.
Yeah. So as Devin from Devin More Music, whose hometown is in Vancouver, do you have other projects kind of going on during the year that we should know about, or projects that are coming up?
Well, the saddest part about being on tour was that I've been away from my real band, not the Flute Loops, but I play in a 3-piece band called Hang Lucy, Lucy. And we just put out our debut EP in the spring. I play guitar and I sing, and I have a fantastic bass player. His name's John Pigeon. And our drummer's name is Ariane Tasca, and they're two of my favorite people to share the stage with. And we have been working on building this really groovy original song catalog for quite a while. And so keep your eyes peeled and ears peeled. You'll see us on local stages for sure once I get back home to Vancouver. And slightly further afield, if you're willing to get on the SkyTrain, I run a series, kind of an underground fringy theater series in New West called Way Off Broadway Wednesday, which will kick off again at the very beginning of October. And it is a different fringy type show every Wednesday night at 7:00 at the Heritage Grill, which is a music venue in New West. And there's a small kind of 40-seat cabaret style back room theater there. And that is just my passion project, I guess, to try and keep this fringe spirit alive year round. And it is always run at a post-capitalist price point. It's an inclusive space. There's no angry tweets that happen at Way Off Broadway Wednesday. It's pay what you want. You can show up any week and know that you'll see something different at 7:00. And it's an opportunity to highlight some of the favorite shows that I've seen on the Fringe. So you might see, a touring artist come through and do a one-off there while they're in the area. It's also a really great place to catch like a first reading. So the local playwrights have a chance to get a new play up on its feet and hear it aloud, and again, play with the audience. Or sometimes we do cabaret style events or storytelling or improv has happened there. It's just like the Fringe. It could be anything. And as someone that I think it's really important to get together and, find ways to explore ideas and be humans in the same space together. And even as someone who obviously has made a choice to really pursue the arts, ticket prices can be it's Vancouver, right? It's hard. There's shows that I want to see where some months I'm like, I don't know if I can really see all the shows that I want to see this month. And that was another big factor in keeping this series running, is that I just want it to be about the art and not about the bottom line, or not have anyone feel like they can't turn up. And because, monetizing the creative products does not always work. Things get lost in translation. And so Way Off Broadway Wednesday is my effort to just completely sidestep that. As an artist, it's virtually no risk financially. As an audience member, you can always just turn up to and watch it. If you don't have the money that week, whatever, just come see the show anyway. It's not about that. And it changes then. You can try anything, right? Much like the Fringe, it's a good place to explore something, or hone this creative product that you're working on, because it does take live performance, and it takes the audience feedback. It takes a lot to develop a hit, or a new piece. So there's the space for it. Come see it. Come see it all unfold.
I think that is such an important thing to be doing, and I'll definitely be attending. I had no idea it existed.
As soon as I have my fall lineup in order, which again will start off at the beginning of October, you can find the event listings always on Facebook, and Way Off Broadway Wednesdays, or Way Off Wed is the page. You don't have to be on Facebook either. It's a public page, so you can just go see what's coming up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of fun.
You're kind of creating your own little Fringe. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and to keep that, how do you keep working on it was partly, this is the second year now. So this fall will be kind of like the fourth season. We go on break in the summer. So I think we've had, about 85 unique evenings of programming come through.
Wow.
There. First, yeah, it's insane, right? That's a lot.
That's almost as many shows as they have at the Fringe.
Right? Spread out over kind of 18 months.
Yeah.
But part of my motivation in wanting to, I have some connections with the Heritage Grill as a musician, and the owner there is a really big arts advocate, and sort of was curious about, what is this Fringe thing that you do, and is that something that could happen here? But part of my motivation in doing it was because you do always need, if you want to try something new, you need a place to get it up on its feet. And if we can start to build a community of people who are willing to come out and see that and give feedback, a lot of the shows often will have a talk back afterwards, so that artists and audiences can really talk directly about the work and how they responded to it. Then, that's fantastic for me as an artist, for the work I want to be doing, but also for all the other artists I know too.
Yeah. Wow. So you're obviously a huge Fringe advocate, fan, lover. What is I've been asking everybody what their absolute favorite thing is about the Fringe, and if you have a favorite Fringe story as well.
My favorite thing about the Fringe, it's not really necessarily a romantic response, but what I love about the Fringe is that you have to do the work. And I think a lot of people, there's sort of this stereotype about creative types that they're a bit lazy or wishy-washy, but I think at the heart of it, all of us just want to be practicing our craft. And most of your struggle as an artist is to find opportunities to actually execute. And what I love about the Fringe is that it's not just about that beautiful kernel of an idea, that first 10% of inspiration. It's about following that through and creating a project. It's about marketing that project. It's about making your promo materials, your press release, your posters, your handbills. It's about learning how to talk about your show and build excitement for it, finding different avenues for promotion, finding your audience, connecting with them. It's like a microcosm of the entire process. And you get a whole bunch of shows within a short period of time. So you get to really, work on the onstage stuff as well. But you also have to follow through on the offstage stuff too, which makes it, I mean, you will just get better. You will improve at your craft, and you will meet all sorts of people who are passionate about the arts in ways that might be different than you, but are still really inspiring. And the work that you get to see, aside from forcing you to execute your own stuff, you also get to see this incredible, diverse body of work that is so inspiring, and to see what other people are doing with just like pure heart, right? There's very little load in time for the Fringe. You cannot rely on a hugely expansive set or any of those gimmicks. It's really just about the heart and soul of the piece and the performers. And that's great, right? It's so truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if I have a favorite Fringe story. You know, my favorite story of this summer was the first stop at the Hydra Festival, which was run very much like a Fringe in Kamloops, which is my hometown. And my brother and his wife and my nephew still live in Kamloops. And my nephew, Leo, is three, and he will tell you all about it. And so my brother was wondering if he should bring Leo to see the show, because Leo has never seen me perform. And you know, it's not scary, Flute Loops, but it's kind of like loud at some points. And Leo, he's a pretty laid back dude, but he also doesn't do anything he doesn't want to do. He's 3. So I said, yeah, no, I think, why don't you come to the matinee and just sit up on the balcony, so that if for some reason Leo hates it or he has to leave, then it's totally fine and won't disrupt everyone else in the theater. So my dad and my brother and Leo came and watched the show from the balcony, and I could see him standing on his chair and with his little ball cap on, just like watching the whole show. And he was so quiet. I didn't hear a peep out of him. He was like super attentive. And then there's a big number at the end. Of course, it's a rock opera. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. Big final song at the end. And then there's a moment, a beat, and then the lights go out. And the only moment that I heard Leo at all, my nephew, was after that final song. In that last beat, I heard his voice, and everyone in the theater heard it go, "Is it all done now?" And it was. So he totally got my show about quantum physics. All ages appropriate, and also my nephew is a genius.
That is such a cool story. Oh my gosh. He's gonna remember that for the rest of his life. I saw my first professional production when I was 4. And I remember almost every moment. I remember the costumes, I remember the lighting, I remember the set. I remember it so vividly. Mm-hmm. That's gonna be with him for the rest of his life. That is awesome.
Yeah. Wow. He wasn't crazy about the rest of it though. After the show, I was like, "Oh, do you want to come be backstage?" And then he got a little bit confused. He was like, "Well, what's backstage?" I was like, "Oh, right. What does that word mean to a 3-year-old?" He's like, "Well, that's where the actors are." It's like, the actors? Are the actors the bad guys?
Oh.
I don't know. I'm going to take the 5th on that one.
Is it a one-woman show though?
Well, it takes place at the concert of the Flute Loops are a 4-piece band.
Oh, okay.
4 attractive white dudes: Lance, Peter, Jason, and Thomas.
Oh,
so
okay.
I mean, technically it's their show, but my character, you know, she takes over a little bit. She tries to worm her way onto the stage. She has a theory, you see, on how her thesis project for her PhD is how to use frequency, how to use sound waves to actually freeze time. And she's a bit stumped on her thesis project. And then when she finds herself at this rock show in this loud musical environment, she tries to find an opportunity to play with that theory out loud. But it's not her show.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm very intrigued. So, to kind of this is your chance to speak to your audience, because program descriptions are written so far ahead. What would you say, because you have a direct stage right now to speak to people who are thinking about seeing your show, why should they see this show? What's special about Flute Loops? give us some intrigue, pique our interest.
Okay, well, Flute Loops is at its heart a fish out of water comedy about this PhD student who loses her way at a hipster rock show. So you will laugh. You will also learn something about your subatomic structure. And if you're not familiar with what is going on inside your atoms, it's pretty wild. So you should come see that. And, it can't warp space time without you, no matter how far under the influence of Stephen Hawking my character is. The audience really needs to be there to take it higher. And the music is it's neat to watch unfold. So send me, if you're a nerd, come see the show. I don't care what kind of a nerd you are. Music nerds love it, theater nerds love it, computer programmers and physicists and science fiction nerds love the show too, because there's a lot of touchstones from all those fields in there. If you don't know anything about physics, it's fine, you'll learn it. If you do know a little bit about physics, there's like a whole nother layer of puns and jokes embedded in there just for you. The Winnipeg Free Press, after that festival, they gave me a really nice review and said, this is truly a one-of-a-kind show. But I think what they meant to say was, it's a singularity.
Thank you so much, Devin, for being with us today. If you didn't catch it earlier, Flute Loops is produced by Devon Moore Music, is on at the Culture Historic during the Vancouver Fringe Festival this year. I've been speaking with Devon Moore of Devon Moore Music. My name is Danielle Benson, and thank you so much for coming, Devon. I can't wait to see the show.
Thank you for having me, and really looking forward to the Fringe. Get out there, see as many Fringe shows as you can, people. It's a really special time. Take a chance. Don't worry about the press too much. Just Fringe binge. You won't be disappointed.